There was something you were going to say right before I started the recording.
No, I was pulling up the Wikipedia page of the
Oh,
movies.
yeah.
So
No, I should also do that.
yeah, there's a weird connect that we were going through. Like the last time we were talking about this podcast, like this episode where we were talking about Paul W. Anderson, Paul S.
Yeah.
W. Anderson. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, he directed the
He wrote
remake to
the
this.
later the remake to this, but my connection was Tommy Scott Lee was playing Dragon in Bruce Lee,
Hmm.
or Bruce Lee in the movie Dragon, which was a biography of sorts of Bruce Lee's life. And the irony of this is David Carradine, who stars in Death Race 2000, was actually uh, cast in a show called Kung Fu, which was he was Bruce Lee was in contention for the main starring role, but
Oh.
instead they ended up casting an American to play what should have been probably a Chinese, like an Asian role that Bruce Lee was ultimately passed over from it uh, for Carradine. Um, and I think this is kind of the point in time where Bruce Lee's popularity was like at an all-time high, because he traveled over
Hmm.
to back to Asia, where he found out that like the Green Hornet was super popular in Asia, like
Hmm.
in Asia, um, and it was floundering in popularity here in the United States. They actually renamed the Green Hornet to the Kato Show over in Asia, because it was based on Bruce Lee's character Kato, and not the main character, the Green Hornet, whoever played him.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure. This is in like the 1970s or 1980s.
Yeah, the Green Hornet. Yeah, I think that's sort of true to some of the interpretations of that media, medium, medium, that story too. I think that was like the central point of like the movie they made in like the early 2000, in the mid 2000s, was that like, yeah, Kato's the real star of the show. That was sort of a big
Yeah,
point
yeah.
of that movie. Cuz I mean, the premise of Green Hornet, for those of you guys who don't know, is that the Green Hornet's like a guy who's owns a newspaper, and decides that he's going to fight crime as a superhero. So I don't know how he recruits him, but he recruits Kato, who's like a Chinese kung fu master or whatever, and just hires him on as his muscle. And the Green Hornet, depending on what version of the story you're reading, does varying amounts of the work, up to the point where people like, yeah, no, Kato does just do all the work in some versions, because Green Hornet's not like a trained fighter. He has like some gadgets and whatnot. So that's a really easy sell as far as just rebranding it the Kato show. And I absolutely see why that would fly real well. Yeah.
Yeah, Jay Chow played him in
Mhm.
2008, I do believe.
Yeah, that was an all right
2011,
movie. I
when
didn't mind it.
the new Green Hornet came out, to starring Seth Rogen and Jay Chow.
Yeah.
Um, Originally in the TV series. Also speaking of, because I don't think it was a comic book ever.
Green Hornet?
Um, no, I think it was a television, and then um, Van Williams starred in the 1966 version as Britt Reed, who's the Green Hornet. Um, okay, maybe it was a comic book. 1940, it was a comic book.
Yeah, because Blue Beetle actually was sort of originally a ripoff of Green Hornet. Like, you'd never tell nowadays, because Like there's a very brief period in the 1940s where Blue Beetle is just a guy dressed just like the Green Hornet but blue. They changed that pretty quick. But
I also learned that the Criminal Code of Canada in the early 1940s prohibited the printing, publishing, or distribution of comic books that depicted people committing a crime.
jeez. I mean, they tried to do that in the States too. I mean, probably.
Yeah, but like, I can't imagine having to write your way around like a bank robbery scene where you can't actually show somebody doing like a bank robbery, especially in like superhero comic books. I don't know how that would work out in all actuality. So, and I don't have like 1940 comic books lying around to be able to like compare and contrast. I could probably find some on the internet, but that's
Yeah, much less
so
something
much
that's like
effort.
exclusively being published in the Canadian market. But I mean, 1940s, especially like after the war, like like superhero comics does like wane pretty heavily because it does like like shortly after the war, superhero comics is just like, oh, it's just Batman, Superman, and like Wonder Woman. It's like a lot of them really drop off at that point. Like Captain America gets canceled after the war. I think uh, Captain Marvel goes down the tubes, but that's a bit for a different reason. Although that was those different reasons combined with the end of the war, just sort of sunk that. But a lot of comic books shift to like other genres in that period anyway. So superheroes weren't like the dominant comic book thing in the 1940s as much as we'd like to think. I think really it kind of sticks to that genre because it's
Also,
yeah.
apparently,
Go ahead.
sorry, I was just reading Sylvester Stallone's like Wikipedia page. He was in a softcore porno in the 1970s.
Oh yeah, they renamed it to the Italian Stallion after he got famous.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Um, it's hilarious because he's like paid $200 for 2 days of work in like the 1970s, and he only did it because he was evicted from his apartment and was homeless for several days.
No, if you get into like Stallone's history, like you find out like yeah, he had it really rough up until like literally up until he got Rocky money. Like I think even like he's not a known name even in this. I think the fact that he's got like such a prominent role in this probably speaks to his talent cuz like I don't like how much I'll see how much I'm going to see how far back does his filmography really go.
1968 was his earliest films, and he was doing mostly stage work under the nickname M- Stallone rather than Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, he's got a
Um,
couple.
and I mean, like this was prior to Rocky, so this is 1975, and then Rocky hit in 1976. So, um,
Yeah, the notes on his filmography are like 319 like three films noted as uncredited extra. Then there's the aforementioned softcore porno where he plays a character. Then there's five, six more films that are uncredited extras. No, 1974, he gets some additional dialogue, more just random stuff. He starts getting steadily a little better. He gets like an actual character with a Wikipedia page when he's in 1975 Capone. Then this, then another uncredited extra in a movie after this, one more uncredited, and then you have Rocky. So like he had it. Yeah, he does not get like a big break until that. Like you find all sorts of stories about like him like needing to sell his dog in order to get money, and then him needing to like buy his dog back after he gets like his Rocky advance.
Yeah, I'm kind of like super on the fence on whether or not I actually think Sylvester Stallone is a half decent actor at this point in time.
Um, I'll say he is. I think he does like he certainly like does enough of an impression to get like the second to main character, like the one of like a big antagonist position with a good bit of screen time when he's like his credits are like non-existent pretty well before this. Like I think he did make an impression on people.
I would argue like the other way that like if Rocky was played by a different actor, they would be just as famous as Sylvester Stallone. There's nothing like endearing about Rocky's performance, or in my opinion, Sylvester Stallone's like performance as Rocky.
I I don't know that I can quite say that. I think Stallone's an okay actor. Like he does something very particular. You wouldn't put him in everything, but I think he does have a an important like personality. Is he like the greatest actor of all time? No, no, but
No,
still, go ahead.
and I haven't watched majority of the Rambos, so like that might be big,
Uh,
or any of the Expendables. Uh, and like only I think maybe two of the Rockies.
I mean, I'd say Rocky has like a few good films. Like I'd say that's his like best franchise, especially now that they've done Creed. And like added to that legacy there. The Rambo stuff, just watched the first one, just watch First Blood. Like I think that's probably the good one. I haven't seen all of them, but I feel like that's like a statement I can afford to make. The Expendables, they're okay. They're sort of fun.
He's in this new Amazon Prime movie, the Samaritan, where he plays like an old superhero like coming out of retirement to like stop crime or something. I don't know. I didn't read like a Wikipedia page on this movie or anything before I brought it up, but
Yeah.
I think I'm just going off of what the previews were. And also he was the voice of King Shark in the Suicide Squad, so it's
Yeah.
kind of cool.
That's that's a performance I found overrated. Honestly, people really like that character. I was just like, meh.
Well, it's a voice role, so he's not even like doing like the CGI like over effects or anything. He's just doing the voice. So,
Yeah, and he's not doing it as good as like I don't think he does as good a job as like when Din Diesel does that same thing. He does a good job in that.
well, we've talked a lot about Sylvester Stallone, but he's not even like the main star of this TV series. What's your opinion on David Carradine?
David Carradine, what is he? I can't remember if I've seen too much of his stuff. Filmography.
He was Bill in like the Kill Bills in like the early 2003s. He did
I
Kung
Yeah,
Fu the movie, Kung Fu the Legend in 1993 and 1997. He's one of those actors that really like started off fairly decent and then kind of fell out of the spotlight and then came back due to his appearance within whatchamacallit, Kill Bill in early 2004,
hmm.
2003.
Yeah, I've never seen Kill Bill. Either of
He's
them.
also passed away recently. There's three of them. Nope, he passed away in 2009 in Bangkok, Thailand. Yeah, so he knew like boxing, street fighting, and sword fighting.
I don't.
Sounds
Yeah, I don't have a particular
stretch.
like feeling toward him. He's a guy you hear of, but I just don't. Not a big. Yeah, he does. He's done. He's been around a lot. People like his stuff, but I just don't have a big feeling for him. He does okay in this. He's a very like. This is a very 60s 70s performance we get from him here. This is a very 60s 70s feeling movie too. Yeah, this film feels very dated to me. We're doing Death Race 2000. I don't know if I've strictly said it or introduced the show, but
I, uh, I think I brought it up like 6 minutes into us
yeah,
talking
we brought
about
it
it
up.
already. So, we did mention on the last episode that we were probably going to do this. I'm just like struggling to even find anything. He did the voice of Frankenstein in the 2008 version, probably in a cameo of some sort. But
I think also an issue is maybe he might have had a famous dad. Hold on. Yeah, John Carradine is his father, who's another pretty famous actor, probably a more famous actor. It seems like. Oh yeah, no, it says on John Carradine's Wikipedia that he's like considered one of the greatest character actors in American cinema. So
yeah, but then okay. I don't really care that he's quoted as one of the greatest American actors in early cinema. He's been in like Dracula and House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula in 1994, 45. In 1966 it was Billy the Kid versus Dracula. So he's literally done 95% of his work. In total, he holds 351 film and television credits from a career spanning from like 1930 to 1988. So,
my point more rather being that like maybe like some of that name recognition is coming from his dad is my only point.
oh yeah, there's definitely like you see it a lot in people who have a lot of money, honestly. When you don't have to worry about paying bills, then arguably like you're just free to kind of do whatever you want, and like a lot of people follow in their parents' footsteps and join into like acting, regardless of whether or not it's forced. You can see some like really younger child stars being forced into acting by their parents, and it doesn't go well, but for the most part.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't want to like speculate too much. I think he does fine. Like I said, he like
And he
John.
was also apparently a uh, draft dodger. He tried to David
Eh,
Carradine tried to dodge the Vietnam War draft. I'm assuming
yeah.
1960s.
Yeah, him and half of America.
Would that be Korean or oh yeah?
No, it would have been no. I think he's old enough. He's of the right age that we're talking Vietnam. And I don't know that draft dodging was a big thing in Korea. Like, believe it or not, I think draft dodging is more a result of like people thinking the war's bad than like people being cowards, if I'm being perfectly honest. But yeah, this movie, yeah, those are the main like two big actors that are like from this. You got a decent like sized female cast. Simone Griffith plays Annie Smith, the the female lead of the movie, who's David Carradine's love interests in the movie. You also got Roberta Collins and Mary Warrenov playing the two female antagonists in the movie. Mary Warrenoff is like pretty famous from like a bunch of movies, Roger Corman movies. So in a bunch of pretty reasonable, like a bunch of cult hits, really.
Oh, Martin Cove. He plays the leader of the Cobra Kai gym in the Karate Kid and the Karate Kid Part 2. He's the bad guy, like the evil sensei. I don't know what his exact title is, but
So yeah, this movie, yeah, also the big elephant in the room is this movie got a remake in what year? 2000s.
2008.
That sounds about right. Which which I had seen. I enjoyed it. I like myself a good mid 2000s Jason Statham movie. It doesn't have a lot of common with this film, and thank God, because I was actually surprised how much better the reboot is. And I don't think the reboot's terribly good, really. Like it's fun. I don't know if I call it like really good. It's all right, but I'm like there's a lot of movies out there, reboots out there that you dread, but like that's a lot better version of this. It just fixes a lot of the weird stuff about this one. I don't know. I kind there's some stuff I kind of liked about this. I think this movie has potential. It could have been better, but they just do. I don't think they're taking it seriously enough to like find like a good script for it.
No, it's very niche. Like you have to, and I mean, kind of like typecasting Jason Statham in this role is doing him a lot of favors because he's like the convicted convict turned like hero. I don't know how else to put that. And I'm really wondering how much this follows a continuity. Because this is Death Race 2000, and then at one point in time, there's Death Race 2050.
I
Um,
think I think Death Race 2050 is like a 2017 film. Yeah, Death Race 2050 is a 2017 film that like they made to like sort of like laugh along with it. Cuz this is a silly movie.
oh, this is definitely a silly movie. The 2008
Yeah.
version is definitely more.
I kind of want to watch the 25th Death Race 2050 cuz it seems like it's a fun little deal.
Well, I
But
mean,
yeah, this is
there's Death Race 2, Death Race 3, Death Race Beyond Anarchy, uh,
yeah, those are all sequels to the
in
2008
which
reboot.
I think the only one that, yeah, so and, like, the only one that's, like, a direct sequel, I think, is Death Race 2 because it still stars Statham, and then I think Death Race 3 is, and it has Danny
I
Trejo
don't
in
know.
it.
I've never
Um, I think it might be a prequel or somewhere set, and then Death Race Beyond Anarchy in 2018 is, the final film in the Death Race remake series, and a direct sequel to the 2008 Death Race.
I never watched any of the reboot sequels. Even though I like really like the first one. Just because I kind of knew they'd be bad.
I think that Death Race 3, I think, was, like, straight to film,
Yeah,
uh, direct to video on January 22nd, 2013, so, I mean, I think they kind of take a nosedive off, like, after the first one. I haven't watched Death Race 2, so I can't really speak too much on that, but
we might have to do a
oh, and that's not
20.
Jason Statham.
No, no, it's not. No, it doesn't.
Okay, so Death
Yeah,
Race 2 explores the original origins of the first Frankenstein car driver. So the
right.
second is a prequel to the 2008 version, played by Luke Gross, not Jason Statham. I guess Danny Trejo.
Yeah, he's
which
in
is
one of
weird
them.
because like they've cast Danny Trejo in the film, and then in the first one they actually cast Ian McShane, who I really like, better than Danny Trejo probably. And they just kind of look similar. Like I'm assuming play very similar roles where they're the mechanics, but I could be wrong. I didn't find like the 1980s weird like revamp. You'd think it'd spawn at least a couple of sequels.
Yeah, David Carradine also has a cameo in the original, in the remake. He does a voiceover of that movie's first Frankenstein, who gets replaced by Jason Statham. So yeah, there's a bit where that character does a bit of voice acting, has a few lines, and those are spoken by David Carradine. So that's kind of an interesting note. Yeah, the big yeah, so Death Race 2000. It starts with the American national anthem, and we get the American national anthem. They eventually fade in onto a sports bleachers setup, where you see some guys wearing Nazi armbands. So that's how you know this is the dystopic future, and they actually have the balls to say that like dystopian America embraces Nazism again. So that's kind of interesting. Gave me a weird kind of hope for the movie. Not really founded. I tried to make it like one of my classic overthinking the political state of this dystopian of this half baked dystopian future into something that's kind of interesting to watch. I couldn't do it. I don't have it. Maybe someone else does, but I can't figure it out. I couldn't figure out a fun one. It's just yeah, the voiceover the host of this sporting event explains the whole deal. This is a big intercontinental uh car race where you get points for running people
Transcontinental.
over. What was that?
Transcontinental.
Trans Didn't I say that? Transcontinental?
No, you said intercontinental, which would make it uh continents connected to each other. So that would probably be like the United States, Mexico, and Canada. But really, it's just transcontinental, which means it's only across America.
You are correct. I for some reason thought those were the same things. You're correct though. That is what those words mean.
No.
Uh,
Uh, which is really ironic because like this seems to be like a national uh America has far succeeded its reach within the whole entire political systems of the world. Like America is now like the biggest and has somehow like taken over the world, but right?
Seems like they've taken over large chunks of Asia based on what they say in the movie.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I can't
Okay,
really
so I'm
say.
not completely insane on that.
No, they
So in
mentioned
theory,
that.
they could have an intercontinental death race, but they do not.
I mean, intercontinental going through the states would have been like probably going across like a bridge would involve like going like either from like crossing like a sort of artificial bridge in Alaska into Asia or taking another bridge they've made between North and South America. So that would have been intercontinental. But this is transcontinental, like a railroad, which takes you from one end to the other, which I'm explaining like I'm explaining it to people, but I'm really explaining it to myself to get through to myself that that's what the difference is.
And I think they start on like the south coast and they head to out west to the west coast, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, they
North
start
to
on the
west.
East Coast and then move to West
Nope.
Coast.
East to yeah, there we go.
We know that the US has conquered large chunks of Asia because they say that the president has a summer home in Peking, which is which is another name for it, which is I think the old name for Beijing. Yeah, it's the pre 1950s term for it. Yeah, which was what the West called it after is what we called it after China did some language reform in the 1950s. There also might be
I
some
think
more. Yeah.
I generally enjoy the 2008's depiction of this death race a lot better than I liked it
Yeah.
this one. Like in 2008, it's about a prisoner who's sent to a prison and to try and commute his sentence, um, or get evidence that he didn't kill his wife. He enters into this death race, um, which is televised to people. It's kind of still dystopian, but not really. Like it's kind of like Guns Akimbo, where like if you're really into watching people die, you can watch this, but it's not necessarily like what I would call dystopian. It's like dystopic adjacent, I guess, is kind of
It's
like
cartoonishly dystopic.
what I would call it. Yeah, okay. Oh,
It's technically a dystopia, but only like insofar as they need a setup for this ridiculous plot. Like people do bad things so plot
compared
can
to something
happen.
like the Hunger Games, where like every year, the whole world is tuning into this the Hunger Games. Like you'd have to want to watch something like this to you're not
Yeah.
forced to watch it, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. And then corporations are like selling the rights to like death races happening and like putting up the money and trying to I think one of the big talking points of the 2008 death race was like the only way we can make this like feasible is by selling it as pay-per-view rights, which is hilarious to me because like it's early 2008 and like pay-per-view is still a thing. Like now
I mean, you
everything's just
still do that for
streamable.
like
So
you still technically do pay-per-view for like sports
sporting
events,
events, I guess, yeah.
which this is technically they do it. I think Formula 1 is a lot of pay-per-view. So,
Ugh.
yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen the fascination people have with NASCAR. I think at one point in time, I headed out to the racetrack with a friend of mine a couple years back in Estevan there, and like I don't see people's like fascination with watching cars go around in circles for copious amounts of time. Is also it was all an outdoor arena, so it was like
Yep.
just like a whole bunch of dirt and like grunge being like thrown around as you watch cars running around in circles. So
It's it's very loud.
I mean, they have probably have a lot nicer tracks. Yeah, in like
Yeah.
bigger arenas, but in small time Saskatchewan, it's all just like dirt and dust.
Yeah.
So,
No, I mean like
and
when
it
you
was
get
raining.
down to it, it's like like when you see it live, you're sitting next to like you're watching a bunch of like things racing around something a bit bigger than a football stadium, running the like loudest, most fuck off car engines that you've ever heard in your life. So
Mhm.
it's not for me. Other people like it, but
Also, can you explain to us the pointing system in this like scenario? Because I'm still
uh
like I watched the whole entire movie and I have no clue how this race actually works.
yeah, that's another problem with this. Okay, so like the remake, they do it real simple. They make it essentially like take it's Mario Kart with guns. That's it. It's like Jack X if you want to get technical, but it's Mario Kart with guns. You drive around a racetrack. You're racing, and you go over like glowing icons on the floor, and it activates like a big like a weapon system. So yeah, that's it's very simple. It's like very self-explanatory. You still want to like get to the end of the race and not die during it. In this one, you get points for running people over when you do the race. And you got to get to the other side. And apparently, this is a very lethal event. Although, why? Because, like, the citizens don't seem to shoot back for the most part. There's an organized resistance movement through the film, which carries on some attacks, and then maybe that's where the deaths come from. But it's not clear, like, why, like, how do you win? Does it matter who gets to the end of the race first? Like, I don't think it makes sense, Cody. I think you're right. You get more points for killing
Like,
women and
yeah, they have a
children.
scoring system, but it's also just a race. What's the point of like scoring system if like the main goal is just to be the first person to end the race? And also, like at that point in time, why are like civilians doing anything on like these race days at that point in time? Because like it's all televised, so you can just time it out and apparently not die on. Like, a
Yeah,
lot of the people that, are dying on these days, uh, at one point in time, they're, like, putting out people from the hospital to, be euthanized, essentially. They're all old people, so they euthanize them by putting them into the middle of the street and getting hit by a car, which is stupid and super dark.
yeah, like that makes sense because like they're purposely trying to get those people killed. But like, what about everyone else? Like, why wouldn't you just
Everybody else is
stay
just kinda
home?
stupid. Like, there was
Yeah,
one guy who was in the middle of the street that was, like, doing road construction, which I guess kinda makes sense because like, you gotta get paid, but, like, are the people that were forced to go out in the middle of the road, like, I don't know how they like, systemize that or anything, wouldn't you just take the day off and not do road construction? And then there was one guy who was, like, dressed up as a matador, like trying to dodge this car that was like suited up as a bull, which is just like that guy had a death wish or something. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
There are a couple
I
guys
don't
doing
have
like
any
a
answers for this.
goof.
Like, it's just like the purge makes sense to me in the
Yeah,
context of the purge, right? Where people are like coming into your house to try and kill you. But like you going out into the middle of the street during what's essentially a purge day is just like borderline stupidity at that point in time. And if you're going to get pointed for it, I mean, at that point it's on you. So you can't really call that like a dystopian at that point in time because nobody's forcing you to go outside on purge day.
yeah. No, it's just the thin plot to set up running people over. But like, yeah, this just seems like the purge that makes less sense because this just seems like it's a lot easier to like the purge is obviously something that like you wouldn't be terribly safe for during. Like you can stay home, it's not going to do you much good against like the really nasty guys who are purging. It's a lot bigger deal for somebody to like run you down inside your house with a car. Like that's a lot more complicated, and these cars are don't generally look hardy enough to do that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, it just
definitely
doesn't
not.
make a lot of sense.
I think
What
I
was that?
think I think in theory that if you could warp the rules, you could play around with the idea of like the death race happening in the United States and make it so much more cooler, where people are like trying to disrupt the death race, where like people are trying to like kill the other racers or something, where it make more sense as like people are bored and need a way to like vent out their anger, and they take it out on the death racers because they're like essentially state sponsored like showmen at that point in time.
Yeah.
There's so many ways you can do this film that makes sense, and then
they don't bother
obviously
with
they
any of
didn't
it.
like put a whole lot of thought into it, so I don't know. Uh like even right now reading up on like the Running Man, which came out in I think 1987, which is very similar premise. I think what's his face? Stephen King also did a very similar. It was yeah. The film was loosely based on the 1982 film of the or novel of the same name, written by Stephen King, published under his pseudonym Richard Bachman. Like the Hunger Games did this better, the Running Man did this better. Like so many things probably did this so much better, and like this one just kind of falls flat. So
It doesn't feel like you need a lot of thought in order to like make something like to like justify this. I feel like you could do it. I feel like you probably when you were like listing off like ways that you could have made this work, I think any of those is acceptable. But like they don't bother. Like they don't bother to make any of this make even the slightest bit of sense. This is based off a short
and it's
story,
like it's such an
but I don't know what the
easy
short story is
premise.
like.
Yeah, called The Racer by yeah, it doesn't give you like a plot summary or anything on its Wikipedia page, but it's by Danish American novelist Ib Jürgen Miker. I don't know how to say his last name.
Melchior?
Either way,
Melchior? No.
yeah.
Moving on. But yeah, that's the premise. You got a couple different racer, and essentially this is a race quotation marks between five guys. There's Nero, who's like aping Nero from Rome. There's Calamity Jane, who's a Texas lady. Matilda the Hun, who's a Nazi,
An
which is
Americanized Nazi
yeah,
though. Like you think if you're going for the whole Nazi look, you'd be like, oh, this lady's German, but they made him American. Like she doesn't really speak with an accent or anything. The only thing that really like allows us to see that she's a Nazi is the fact that she has like swastikas all like on her like headband and stuff like that. Like
yeah. Her
at least make her
navigator's a
German. Come
German.
on.
Also Matilda the Hun.
Yeah, I thought that was okay. It's Fred Grandy. I thought it was oh, I guess that might have been a little bit before his time. I can see his face, but I can't think of his name. He reminds me a lot of the character, not Dan Aykroyd's character in their nerdy guy from Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I haven't seen the original
Rick
Ghostbusters.
Moranis, and it's not
Oh
Rick
yeah,
Moranis.
the Hun, Matilda the Hun. Hun is also a nickname for like Germans in the First World War, although you could apply it to the Second World War too. But yeah, that's actually a funny story. The Huns, for those of you who don't know, are like a vaguely Germanic people from like the time of Rome. They're like like a quote unquote barbarian force that does raids on Rome occasionally. And they started calling the Germans Huns in World War I because Kaiser Wilhelm II had made like a big speech comparing the German or Prussian military. I forget what the year on this was. Yeah, the German military to the Huns, and he did this in comparing them to an event that the German army would show up late for. And I don't mean like the German, like how the Americans show up late to the World Wars. I mean like late as in they missed the entire conflict, and so people would make fun of them for that in World War I. So that's why they kind of called. So yeah, that's a bit of that. The the fourth racer is Machine Gun Joe, who's played by Sylvester Stallone. Yeah, it's more of he has a machine gun. He's dressed up a bit like a old gangster, but yeah, he's kind of got like a goofy gangster outfit, not like a slick one, sort of like a really goofy looking one. Yeah, they don't do much. Like he gets this role because he's one of the more talented actors that could possibly be on game for this, but it's not a terribly endearing outfit. He does fine. Like he actually like he knows how to deliver a line, unlike a lot of people in this movie. Not to insult any the other actors too badly. Machine Gun Joe is also notable for being the only one of the few guys who's actually won the transcontinental race. And the other racer who's won the race twice before, the only guy to ever win the race twice, is somebody known only as Frankenstein, who is introduced to us on a gurney because he's in like suspended animation after what they refer to as, yeah, we did a limb transplant on this guy and he's just recovering from that. And then he wakes up as the reporters come to interview him, and he walks away as they put him in like this really bad looking outfit. It's like a super filler. It's like a black all black superhero outfit, cape and all, with a really ugly looking mask that that covers up most of his face, exposing like Deadpool skin under the eye and mouth holes on it. It's a very terrible looking outfit, but
Basically, just
yeah,
like a gimp suit at that point in time. Like I almost expect a zipper over his mouth, like the traditional gimp suits. So,
I think he doesn't he have zippers over like his chest.
uh, I wouldn't really call them zippers per se, but like, yeah, he does definitely have, uh, like a cross or something, like a X over his chest or something along those lines. It's like a very 2000, like early 1945s, like Batman costume almost. If I had
Yeah, it
to
looks
compare
really
it to
bad.
like basically anything, I think that's it's the best example I can give you. Like
Yeah.
if like early 1945s, like Adam West's like Batman was really into like BDSM or like
Yeah.
dungeon play. So leather kink or whatever you want to say at that point in time. But yeah, it's really bad. And I mean, if you're really looking to like get a visualization of how bad it is, you can always Google it. So
Mhm. Yeah, it's terrible looking costume. Yeah, they do a lot better with the original. I think they even or the remake, and I think they even rip off the remake costume for the sequel to the 2017 sequel. So yeah, he's recovering for this. We get a little bit of a clip showing the president, who's like illuminated as if he is God, to just show what sort of world this is, even though the world's like nothing special. It seems like it could be better, but like I've said, but it's not. Each of the racers has a navigator of the opposite sex. So yeah, because I mean you need a navigator for this kind of race because you're there's so much to do, and I'm not a racing expert. I couldn't tell you the exact details. We get a look at all the cars for this race. They are all incredibly goofy looking. Yeah, it's not cool. So it's just really, I don't know. This is a certain type of movie, and it's not doing much to impress it.
I like how all of these race cars also don't have any form of like they don't have any like rooftops,
Yeah, they're all convertibles.
but they're going going through the desert or like Arizona and stuff like that, and like they weren't
Oh,
like, hey, maybe we should put a roof on our car at all. Um, But they have roofs, like, they show a car with a roof later,
Oh, and Frankenstein's wearing that leather
or,
outfit.
like, goggles or something.
Oh yeah, yeah, this seems terrible. To yeah, these are probably terrible to
Also,
drive.
Machine Gun Joe has, like, a machine gun on the front of his car, but, like, he can't really use it,
Hmm.
which is dumb, but, like, why does he have, like, Machine Gun Joe in his name? Like, at one point in time, like, he showed, like, shooting machine gun into the audience, but I think it's all blanks because nobody dies or anything.
Yeah, I was
So,
expecting
like,
somebody to like get like gore affected in that scene, and no one does.
it's just like a shtick at this point in time. Like, you could have just called him Joe. I mean, I guess Machine Gun Joe kinda sounds cooler, but, like, at least in 2008, I think there was Gun Joe in the original, like, in the remake, and he definitely uses a machine gun at some point in time in
Yeah, the
that.
Machine Gun Joe car in the remake has like big fucking machine guns on it, and the guy the guy out machos Sylvester Stallone's character in this easily.
Like, I would expect, like, if you're gonna do something cool with the character, at least, like, give him a button in his vehicle to be able to, like, shoot his guns or something, but honestly,
Yeah.
they're just props.
Hmm.
And honestly, like, I think the knives and the bullhorns actually do more damage to, like, other vehicles than this guy does with his machine guns.
Yeah.
So, definitely a misnomer, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. No, it's not great.
I guess that I guess Machine Gun Joe has a better, like, sounding name than, like, "Knife strapped to the front of my vehicle so that when I run over people, it stabs them, Joe."
You can tell Stallone's not getting that Rocky respect just quite yet.
Oh, yeah.
Like you definitely like watch this movie and with modern context expect like Stallone to be doing a way cooler job of this. Like he's not even particularly like badass in this. He sort of like talks tough, which he can't help because he's Sylvester Stallone. But like he gets in a fight with Frankenstein later in the movie and just gets his ass kicked. Like Stallone, the guy who plays Rocky, the boxer.
And I mean, he's not small in this either, like, he still has, like,
No,
his physique and all that. And, like, David Carradine's, like, this little twig compared to him, but yeah, he just gets his ass handed to him. And, like, his whole motivation, I think it comes down to later, it's brought up. He's like, "Why are you even doing this death race?" And he's like, "I wanna do it for hate, to show the world hate," or some like, really stupid, shitty thing like that, like, halfway throughout the movie, and it's just like, "What?" Like, who wrote this at this point in time?
yeah, no, this movie rejects any attempt to be at all like interesting or entertaining. Like it's just it didn't make me like angry during it, but like you kind of get a little bit angry like about the fact that it's like not doing anything.
They had a couple of, like, small, like, political jabs and stuff like that, like, where they're like, "We're gonna euthanize the old people," but, like, that's it's kind of, like, the only, like, real thing that they tried to make, like, a political statement out of it. It
Mhm.
wasn't like, "Oh, we're trying to reduce population by, like, killing off, like, the people who like, the poor or the, like, people who are stupid enough to go out on purge day," like, stuff like that.
Mhm.
Kind of just falls flat because it's too campy?
Yeah,
Campy is a good word for it.
it's it's
So,
not gritty
I don't know.
enough to be a cool movie and it's not campy enough to be like a fun kids movie.
I've got nothing.
No, and like here's an example. Okay, so like they start the race. They get like the scene where Calamity Jane does like a thing with a bullfighter, which eventually ends in her killing the bullfighter. The next like big race thing is Frankenstein he's driving up to this hospital that we've talked about where they put out a bunch of old people to get run over, and old people are actually worth like a lot of points in this race. And Frankenstein and like and the navigate her his navigator is just sort of like, oh dude, what are they doing? And Frank's just like, oh yeah, they do this every year. And Frank does this thing where he like goes around the old people and goes through like the approach of the hospital and runs over a bunch of the nurses and doctors who had wheeled these guys out there. And you think that's like saying something about the character, but I really don't think it does. This character has like morals or like a sense of motivation when they have like a cool idea, and not like at all after that.
He's almost doing it in a protest to the whole entire race, but like his whole character is like all for the death race up until the like finality of the movie where it's shown that he's really anti death race. Like
Yeah. No, there's this scene with the hospital, and then the ending, and outside of those two scenes, he is a enthusiastic participant in this death race. Like, I don't think that's a weird read of the thing. It's just it's frustrating because it's like you don't need to do much. Like, I don't think this film needs to do much to be like, aha, acceptable. But no, it's not even doing that. It's
mm,
like most of the plot is just like nope, nope. Later in the race, as the race goes on, we'll get suspicious of Anne's motivations. And it turns out like she's the granddaughter of the leader of the resistance, a lady named Thomasia Payne, which is a aping of the guy Thomas Paine. And they're trying to stop the death race. And the resistance's plan is to have Anne kidnap, like drug and or kidnap Frankenstein, so they can use him as like a bargaining power in order to carry out an assassination or get some social reforms. Which, I mean, and that's actually a really good twist because as we find out later in the movie, and this is one of the through lines between this and the reboot, is that Frankenstein is a mask. Frankenstein is just like a name they put on this character after the last guy who was Frankenstein dies, so that they can just have this makeshift celebrity for these races. The difference is in the remake, they're just grabbing a guy off the street or like framing some criminal who happens to have like a racing car experience, which is how they get Jason Statham in the remake. In this one, Frankenstein's just grown in a vat. He's just one of a million super soldiers. They wheel out the second one of the Frankensteins gets into like a car accident. And then they just make up lies about like them like fixing his face and his arm.
yeah, and you'd think this would be like a giant yeah, you'd think this would like throw a giant wrench in the whole entire resistance plan, knowing that like Frankenstein is now officially like dispensable, but they're definitely like leading into the fact that the president's gonna give enough crap about the celebrity that they've kind of raised up to be enough that like he's gonna like come to the table and like potentially bargain with the terrorist force that's like holding holding him captive or something like that. And the whole point of them doing this at this point in time is so stupid because it doesn't exactly make any fucking sense. Where they're like, we're gonna kidnap the death racer to try and get the president to agree to get rid of death races. Like the whole reason
Yeah,
why Frankenstein is valuable is because he's the big show figure for this fucking death race.
but yeah, like this is like one slightly reworked script away from being this like really good twist. If they did anything to make us give a shit about Anne's motivation, you can make it so that Anne like portrays this fact that, like, okay, we were going to kidnap this guy because we were told he was best friends with the president and we could use him as like a negotiating chip. But like, oh no, the president doesn't give a shit about this guy and I'm deep undercover, so I can't even like call this off. A lot of my friends in the resistance are like planning this big ambush of Frankenstein, and Frankenstein is just going to kill these guys. And even if they succeed, it's not going to get them anywhere. So it's a waste of resources for the resistance to even bother here, except to maybe expose the whole thing, which is going to be of limited importance in this thing. And like, again, we're like fixing this script with just like spitballing, but they just refuse to do any of it. It doesn't help that David Carradine is also clearly like the main character here. Like he is like obviously a Gary Stu here. He's got to be really good at everything and get through all the plots. He's got to pick up on everything and have like a big plan for everything. And he's got to win all the fights and he's going to do all the right things at the time that he needs to. And despite the fact this character is a really amoral, obvious character, he's going to do all the right things and he's not actually going to kill anybody. But yeah, blah, blah, blah.
I was gonna say, like, portrayal of the resistance in this movie is also kind of like hilarious because they're all like blue collared factory workers, and one's like carrying around a stick of dynamite, and like he's like, "We need to rise up," and he's like holding dynamite in his hand to like show that he means business or something. Like, I don't know why he's carrying it at all. Like, he had the dynamite beforehand, and like nothing would state that he needed dynamite to be able to make his point, but he had it. So
Yeah, and like, why are we making fun of the resistance so much? Like the resistance is being made to like be the comedic characters, even though they're the heroes here. And I'm not saying you can't make fun of the heroes, but like
oh
the
yeah.
movie's just mocking the resistance the entire time. And what's the point? It's like, yeah, it's so silly of them to want to end the fucking despotic military and the death race where they just ran over random civilians whenever they want. It doesn't. The decisions of this movie just don't make much sense to me.
And it's just hilariously like slapstick the way that the resistance is trying to like carry out this plan in all actuality. That I don't know. They're like we're gonna kill off five of the main characters. Like that's it. Also, this death race has five people in it.
Also weird. I
Like, at least, like, the death rates in 2008, there was, like, 40 or, like, 50, like, it was like, a big production or something,
There was like a good dozen of them,
uh,
I think, at least.
like, there was stakes in the 2008 death race. I think they couldn't, sit there and, like, have this conversation with, like, within the cars because they were, like, bugged or something, so there was kind of, like, this whole heist, like, we can't show the audience everything that we want to because, like, it ruined the story type thing. This, they don't really give a fuck, like, David Carradine, like, doesn't wear, like, his Frankenstein mask throughout the whole entire movie to, like, keep up the facade that he's, like, Frankenstein. He, like, takes it off, like, I don't know, for, like, a good chunk of the movie, even though it's supposed to be televised. So like
Mhm.
apparently the cameras can't see the fact that and like he's just a normal guy throughout the whole entire film.
Yeah.
So
And when he and like Jason Statham takes off his mask a good bit in that movie too, in like his version too. But like that's because he's in a enclosed cockpit with like blinders on it. Like people can't see inside the vehicle. Yeah, they do a bunch of racing for the rest of it. The movie the racing is intercut when they reach like checkpoints and all the characters like get massages and we get to like get everyone naked and we see all the actresses topless and like everyone gets to have sex. It's I don't like it. Also, like there's no they're doing such a 1950s hero thing with Frankenstein and Anne. Like Anne like falls in love with him for no reason. And like not even just no reason, like she actively shouldn't be. I would even buy her sleeping with him as like a spy thing, like as like a she's trying to manipulate him thing, but that's not what's going on here. She's falling in love with him.
Mhm.
They get married at the end.
This is one of my favorite shots, like, in this entire film because they are, like, clearly in a high school gym or something.
Yes, also.
Like, which is hilarious to me because, like, that's all you had to do was, like, not do far away shots and do, like, more close-up shots. Because like, there's clearly an exit sign in what's supposed to be, like, a bedroom, essentially.
hmm Yeah, no, but here's the thing, Cody. We have David Carradine in this movie. And David Carradine is clearly such a massive box office draw off Kung Fu that like we can do literally nothing interesting with this movie and people are still gonna pay a ton of money for it.
I mean, you talk a lot of shit, but they did.
Yeah, no.
I don't
I
know
am
if you're trying to be sarcastic. This movie made,
no.
like, 4,000,000 or, like, $5,000,000
That's kind of why I'm mad.
off of, like, a
Like it's such a
you know,
lazy piece of shit movie.
$5,000 budget.
It's such a lazy piece of shit movie where they're just relying on one guy's star power for the whole thing. And like that guy's star power means we don't have to do anything interesting or make the script make sense. We're just going to have David Carradine sell this entire movie. And that's all we need to do. And also like have David Carradine in it and have all the actresses be naked for a third of the run, for a third of their screen time, and that's going to be enough to sell the movie. We don't need to make the script good. We don't we're going to have like two really good explosions. The rest of the special effects don't need to be good. Just make sure there's two really good explosions and that'll be enough for the movie. And yeah, and then we all fucking ate it up. Then we all ate it up. We gave these guys like $5 million off a $300,000 budget. And yeah, that's it. uh,
And, like, not even, like, decent blood, like, special effects or anything. Like, half the
no,
time, it feels like it's paint. So I'm, like, trying to figure out where all that money went because it's definitely not in the special effects, and it
to
definitely
David
wasn't being
Carradine.
paid to the writers. So David Carradine probably made a whole lot of money
To
because
David Carradine. It says on the Wikipedia that like they gave him 10% of the
oh
budget
god.
and 10% of all the money this movie made. David
Sure.
Carradine. I I don't fucking care how good the show Kung Fu is. It doesn't mean you can like ride this hard like and just like take David Carradine's dick out of your mouth. Just god damn it. I didn't hate this movie. I wasn't angry while I watched it. But like it's just
I
I'm
was.
getting podcast angry. I'm not this like this isn't as bad as like The Happening or The Avengers where I didn't get angry watching the movie, but I'm getting angry talking about it.
I literally got halfway through this movie, I paused the film, I opened up my Facebook Messenger, and I apologized to you. That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
So you should have known going into the film that it was gonna be quite the ride, but
Oh, I it's not even that rough a watch, Willie. It just it's just making me philosophically angry more than like the fact that this movie is like viewable is what makes it like is going to keep it from like the bottom dregs of this cinema's history. But oh yeah, starting the second day, Frankenstein drops his glove in the middle of the racetrack and then drives sort of slowly away from it. One of the guys in charge of the race goes to pick up his glove, and Frankenstein just backs up and runs the guy over. Which I don't know. They're trying to pretend like he has contempt for the situation, which he doesn't seem to. Like when he finds out, like if this is the character we're supposed to be following, the character who murders like a race official, and the character who murders all those nurses that tried to kill those old people, and indeed the character that will eventually just run over the president with his sports car. If that's the case, why does he get all bent out of shape over Anne trying to betray him? Because like the scene after, like soon after this, Anne will try to like lure him into that trap we mentioned, and he not like roofies her so that she can't interfere in him getting away from those people. If he has so much contempt for this operation, why doesn't he side with her? Like I don't, yeah.
Also, they pointed out on Cinema Sins. I watched. I wanted to try and get the 2008 version, so I at least had somewhat of an idea of what happened in the 2008 version because I haven't watched it in like I don't know, probably 9 or 10 years now. Um, they pointed out how like the sheer number of roofies that David Carradine had in his car,
Oh yeah,
which was like a Tupperware container full,
yep.
and he like puts one in her drink. So it's like, how many people did he plan on roofying?
No, yeah, single serve soup container full of roofie pills. Just like,
So I've got nothing.
yeah, no, it's so none of this makes sense. Yeah, so this also causes an issue later in the movie where like they say like, "Oh yeah, you get like half points for running over race officials." Which who fucking cares? The resistance has also started killing off some of the racers. They lure Nero onto a IED by like stationing this fake family on top of like an IED and then setting it off. The government initially covers this up, but then decide that it's going to be easier to like instead blame the whole issue on France. It makes as
Mhm.
much sense as you think it does. The next thing the resistance ends up doing is Matilda the Hun and Calamity Jane get into a rivalry because Calamity Jane's navigator is sitting outside of her car earlier in the at some one point in the race doing some repairs, and Matilda runs over the navigator while he's outside of the car, and this causes a little bit of a fight between the two. And the next day of the race, Calamity Jane ends up trying to run them off the road. The resistance interferes in this, and fucking like Wile Coyote draws a fake tunnel, like makes up a fake tunnel for Matilda the Hun to drive off a cliff through. Like they literally do like a Wile Coyote murder to her, and it's like, mwah. That's actually probably my favorite part of the movie. Bugs Bunny
And
would be
just like
proud.
the fact that like all it it's even more Bugs Bunny-ish when you listen to the soundtrack that they have over this entire film too. It's like all slapstick music pretty much.
Yeah, terrible soundtrack.
Terrible soundtrack. Um Overcut on pretty much everything. The like fighting scene, silly soundtrack. The race car driving, silly soundtrack. Like Wile E. Coyote driving off a cliff by setting up a fake tunnel, like silly soundtrack. Like you can't take this movie seriously at all because of not only like all the things we mentioned before. On top of that, it's like just really badly done, like score wise. So
Yeah, so Calamity Jane manages to like break before she falls off the cliff, and then briefly a little while after that, she drives over a landmine, which she almost just barely misses. She gets stuck in the sand and has to like back in and out, and eventually hits a landmine, killing her. Leaving just Machine Gun Joe and Frankenstein left in the race. After the resistance does the ambush attempt on Frankenstein, they they have the final night of the race, in between night of the race. Anne had like given Machine Gun Joe some false information on the previous night to drive him down like a weird detour, which took him to a dead end, and that caused a bit of a fight. So Frankenstein kicks Sylvester Stallone's ass in a very unconvincing manner. It's not even like a close fight, really. They're just giving David Carradine the win because he has the big fuck off contract for this movie. So yeah, that's it. Frankenstein and Anne have sex. Blah blah blah.
So
We
you think that
get
for somebody who's starring in a TV show called like Kung Fu, that he would be like at least somewhat decent at fighting throughout the whole entire series, but like I don't know if this was before or after Kung Fu, but he can't fight worth
after,
a shit in this movie.
after maybe during.
So yeah, like I stand
Yeah,
by my statement.
yeah. It's
So
also Sylvester. We know Stallone can kick more ass than he does in this movie. The guys at the time maybe don't, but yeah,
and like I wouldn't even say like David Carradine's in like good physique.
yeah,
He honestly kind of looks sort of pudgy in his like gimp costume. So
yeah. Yeah. It's not. He's and
and
like
that's
he
what he
really does
beats his
sort
ass
of
in too. So
Yeah, he does sort of just brute force his way through the fight too, which is sort of unconvincing. It seems like he should just be like, oh, he needs to be just. Normally, you'd like direct this scene, and like you'd have like David Carradine just be faster than Stallone, which I buy. But no, he's just like brute forcing his way
I mean,
through this like he's a '50s brawler, even though he's a not that.
yeah, I give up trying to make sense of anything going on in this film at this point in time. So
So we get the final day of the race. Joe and Frankie finally get attacked by the resistance forces, who have a plane, which they try just doing bombing runs on them. Joe ends up dying in this fight. I forget how. And Frank uh, ends up dodging the plane long enough that that the plane just ends up driving into a mountainside. Oh, the how they kill Joe is Joe's trying to chase down Frankenstein. Frankenstein apparently had a grenade attached to his hand the whole time and was going to use it to kill the president the whole time. Apparently, I totally believe all this. And they throw and in order to get Joe off his ass, and takes that grenade which Frank had revealed to him and throws it into Joe's car, and it explodes, killing Joe. So now that they've thrown away this grenade they were going to use to kill the president, because yeah, they needed to. Although they frame it like, oh, Anne just is so in love with Frankenstein that she can't let him die no matter what. And fuck off with all that shit. Yeah, they planned their assassination attempt. And what they ended up doing, Anne goes up to the president dressed as Frankenstein with a knife in her hand. She takes a bullet that her grandmother shoots from the crowd in order to prevent Frankenstein from dying. This causes a bit of a stir, but it turns out that Frank is just in the car shirtless, and drives into the random stand the president's standing on, and causes it to collapse and kills the president that way. And just like that, Frankenstein is the new president of the United States of North America and Asia, I guess. He marries Anne, and he just explains that he's going to restore democracy, move the capital back to New Los Angeles, and also discontinue the race. And when one of the reporters is complaining about this, Frankenstein runs him over.
yeah, I have so much to say about this last little part here. Uh, First of all, they arm Anne with like a pocket knife. That doesn't look like it could kill a grown man, like, unless you stabbed him, like, directly in the, like, heart or something.
Yeah,
Um,
neck.
Second of all, I don't think, like, the costume in this, like, movie wouldn't necessarily hide breasts on a female, like, unless they altered it, which they don't have time to do. Second of all, they tried to make a hand grenade pun because he has, like, a fake hand, and it's a grenade. Second of all, this isn't like a kung fu dojo where, like, if you beat the master kung fu dojo person, you become the dojo master. Like, if
Yep.
you kill the president of the United States of America, you don't get to become the president of the United States of America. There was, like, no election.
Yeah, this isn't the Roman Empire. You can't just kill the last guy and become emperor.
So unless, like, they overthrew the government as the resistance force happened or something along those lines, I've got no clue. Uh
Frankenstein appoints Thomasina Paine his secretary of state or whatever, and she's going to fix everything.
Which, once again, Carradine's just a pretty face. Like, he's not like this whole
Mm-hmm.
brains
Mm-hmm.
behind the, like, new America. He's just like a public figurehead at that point in time, where everybody else is going to do the work around him, and because he's David Carradine, he just gets to coast because he's David Carradine.
There's a final voiceover to end the film, which says some parody fascistic bullshit. I don't know, something about violence like being
I don't know.
necessary for the human condition. I don't know.
I stopped it once the credits started rolling. I'm not like looking for Easter eggs in the post-credit scene of Death Race 2000. Like, they're not like hiding like the next Marvel like plot line in it or something like that. So,
It's not a terribly long voiceover. It goes like through the principal cast, and that's about it. Yeah, it's maybe like a 15
fair enough.
second speech. Yeah. What do you give the movie, Cody?
1 out of 10 easily. And the only
Fair.
reason why it's getting a 1, is because I don't like doing, like, 0.5s or something like that. The only reason why it's getting a 1 is because of the, Looney Tunes style death scene in it, so and also there's a scene where, Sylvester Stallone is, like, eating whipped cream for whatever reason, and that was kinda funny to me. And, like, the hand grenade pun is stupid, but I also laughed at it, so it's, like, the only redeeming qualities this movie's had, so
Yeah, I get yeah, to speak more on the sever hand thing. I guess the current Frankenstein has a severed hand that he grafted a grenade onto, which I think that contradicts things earlier in the movie. I don't know. I'm giving it a 2 because I didn't get mad while I was watching the movie. And I think that's worth something. Like, it's not compare I don't think I can fairly compare it to the other things I give a 1, but that's all I'm giving it.
oh, yeah, and some of the camera work is kind of okay.
Yeah.
I like the, use of, like, strapping the camera to the hood of the car, like, going
Mhm.
through the desert. Although they did intercut it with really stupid music,
Yeah.
so
Exactly two of the explosions are really good. I will say that. Most of the
Uh,
special
w
effects are
I
terrible,
would
but
argue that
yeah.
they're both really bad.
Meh, I
The
like them.
the fact that the plane explosion at the end is done by, like,
Oh, yeah. No, not that one.
it's
Yeah.
totally like a toy plane model that, like, crashes into the side of a mountain and explodes, but
Yeah, no, that's not one of the good ones. I think it's when they kill Matilda the Hun's car, and also I think Machine Gun Joe's car. Those are really good explosions, but beyond that, no, they're
oh,
all
yeah,
really
I
good.
guess fair enough.
Yeah, that was a nice big billowy explosions.
Also,
Um,
there was another scene that I don't think we talked about. It was, one of the death scenes for the stupid pedestrians who are out taunting vehicles. One of them planned to, they dressed up as like 70s styles greasers, and then they were gonna jump down into a pothole. If you slow it down enough, you can see that it's not actually people. It's two dummies hanging out in a pothole that they run over, and then it explodes and like causes blood effects. So
Yeah, that was a
that
good
was
bit.
cool.
I also I think I think you can get this movie on Tubi. I recommend you watch it that way. I watched a really bad scan of it on YouTube. That's how I found it.
Oh, yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
you said you
There's probably
stole it. Yours is your stolen version was almost certainly better than what I watched.
I did not steal it according
Of
to the
course.
internet.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right.
I'm not stealing two other movies as we speak.
I don't know if you wanted to be really generous, you could say there's a good chunk of nudity in it, but like one of those naked ladies you get to see is a Nazi, and I'm not going to I'm not interested in Nazi women. So I don't know. Anyway, next movie, I don't know what we're doing. See you guys soon.
Yes.
Bye.